Welcome to Bent TV. I'm Andy. Tonight we have a fantastic mix of really bizarre and interesting stuff. We are starting with In the Thick of It, hosted by Sammy. She is interviewing Christian Vega, who is a presenter on the Vixen Hour on Joy 94.9, the world's only radio show hosted by sex workers.
Welcome to Bent TV, In the Thick of It, with Sammy Whitehead. I'm very pleased to be joined by Christian Vega, who not only does a fantastic show on Joy 94.9, the Vixen Hour, but is also a great advocate for sex workers in Australia. Welcome.
Hi, Sammy.
Now, sex workers in Australia is something that we are seeing a lot more visibility and being talked about. We have the Sex Party, which is part of Australia's Parliament, and another one of the great parties that we have. But also, to get down to a few statistics, there is, I think, nearly 20,000 sex workers in Australia.
Yeah, that's a rough estimation, and it's hard to get really good stats on the sex industry because it's legislated at a state-based level, so there's not sort of a consistent national way to collect that data, which makes it really, really hard to sort of, I guess, understand things like the size and demographics of the sex industry. But we do sort of, as an estimation, say approximately 20,000 sex workers, yeah.
And I think it is estimated that nearly half of those are in New South Wales, which is one of the states in Australia which is actually the most supportive with legislation towards sex work.
That's right. So New South Wales has a model of legislation called decriminalisation, and what that means is there are no specific laws around sex work, and while people might jump up and down and panic and think that's deregulation, it's actually not the case. So because sex work is treated like an occupation, like any other occupation, there doesn't need to be a specific law. So, you know, we don't have a Plumbing Act or the Bakers Act.
That's right.
So why would we have a Sex Work Act? That's what the thinking behind New South Wales is. So they got rid of the law, but what it means is legislation that applies to all other occupations apply to sex work. So industrial relations, fair work, occupational health and safety standards, all of those things that apply to every other workplace can apply to the sex industry. In states where that is not the case, where we have licensing or legislation, we've actually seen that legislation act as a barrier to those occupational standards applying to the sex industry. So, for example, in Victoria, we have the Justice Department, through Consumer Affairs Victoria, act as workplace regulators of the sex industry, and what that means is that Fair Work or WorkSafe aren't actually going into sex work workplaces. So in that way, sex worker activists or advocates or people who are working towards better rights for sex workers see legislation as a form of discrimination because one standard is being applied to us and that is different to the standard being applied to everyone else.
Well, that's right, because it is a workplace as it is with anyone else, and the estimates say that over 50% of sex workers are working within an agency or have the ability to, that are employed, and then I think it's about 40% are actually self-employed.
That's
so
right.
A lot of people naturally go back to the old adage and the thinking of sex workers as the sex worker standing on the corner, where it's under 5% of the estimates in Australia of sex workers are actually working on the street.
Yeah, it's interesting, the significant amount of media attention paid to what's termed illegal sex work or non-compliant sex work or sex work that doesn't fall within a regulatory framework is so significant that people think that is the majority of the sex industry. So their idea of sex work would be around street-based sex workers, or also in Victoria, this idea of illegal brothels, because that's reported on quite a lot in the media. But what an illegal brothel is somebody working from their own home. So it's not this sort of, run-down, dingy old house.
Yeah, they think with some, madam smoking cigars out the front.
Young women chained to beds. No, it's more independent private workers who work outside of the regulatory framework, including things like working from home.
And again, it becomes down to visibility in the media and being able to realise that it is a job like everybody else, and the equality that we see in workplaces in Australia is actually more well supported within the sex industry, supporting women and being able to provide them with safe environments.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that stigma, I guess, has forced us to do is we still need support, and we still need social connection. So quite often what we do is find that within our own communities. So that is why, I guess, the Australian government was very forward-thinking in the 80s when responding to the advent of HIV to empower sex workers enough to be able to fight the virus. They decided to fund sex worker organisations and say, look, you as a community can support yourself. They did the same with gay men, and that's how the AIDS councils were formed.
That's right, yeah.
So in the same way for sex workers, they funded sex worker organisations knowing that the strongest support for sex workers being so marginalised were each other. So we empowered each other to do things like peer education, teaching each other to stay safe, and really take control of HIV in this country, which is why to date there hasn't been a single instance of HIV transmission in a sex worker setting in Australia.
And one of the fantastic organisations that you've been heavily involved with in the support network has been the Scarlet Alliance, which is actually run by sex workers.
That's right. So the Scarlet Alliance is the National Association of Sex Workers. In Australia, it is made up of sex workers and organisations of sex workers. So it's a very, I guess, true representation of the community. In the same way that you know, AIDS councils are, you know, they're made up of gay men or people, you know, who are I guess priority populations in fighting HIV. Yeah.
And it's a great way also for people to be able to get a better understanding, because they have a great website which is scarletalliance.org.au.
That's correct.
And they have some wonderful stories written by sex workers about their experiences in the industry as well.
Absolutely. And you know, the more that sex workers, I guess, share their story and their voices, and this is a lesson that we've learnt in the gay community. That's why, you know, we have Pride March, as in, you know, being as out as possible, is a way of sort of claiming our space in the community. You know, we're all human beings, we all deserve the same human rights, and I guess sharing our stories, our voices, is a way of trying to work towards that.
And also being able to recognise to people that a sex worker could be sitting next to you having a cup of coffee, it could be your neighbour, it could be the person you run into at the supermarket.
Absolutely.
They are employed, you are employed just the way everybody else is. 50
years ago, you know, GLBTI activists would always say everybody knows a gay person, they just haven't told you.
That's right.
I feel the same way about sex work. Everybody, I'm sure, would know a sex worker. It's just that they don't feel safe enough to tell you about it.
And again, it's being able to be comfortable in that environment. Christian, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us here on Bent TV. We look forward to catching up with you more on the Vixen Hour. It's been In the Thick of It with Sammy Whitehead on Bent TV.
Wow. The thought of sex work blows my mind. You're watching Bent TV. We will be back after this break. Welcome back to Bent TV. Our next segment is Squeal, hosted by Bent TV's own Sky High. We have a panel of cross-dressing people and we discuss how do our guests identify themselves in our diverse and labelling society.
Y'all need to wash under y'all damn nuts.
Good evening and welcome to Squeal. I'm Sky High. Tonight I'm joined by Miss Gay and Miss Transsexual Beauty Pageant. We have Norbert, Charity and Geisha. Now, we talk a lot about labelling and sexual diversity on Squeal, and I have to ask, for my own benefit and for the people watching at home, do you two ladies identify yourselves as transsexual, transgendered or drag queen?
I'd say I would identify myself as a drag queen. Yes. I have never considered myself transgender or transsexual or crossdresser. I do this purely for performing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that would be
fantastic.
For me, I'm a little bit confused.
A little bit confused, a little bit in between, a little bit not sure which way we're going.
It's a process. I don't think that you can just label yourself definitely. Oh, I'm this. I'm transsexual, or I am drag queen. I am this. You know, because as we grow, as we experience things differently, like the other day, I was reading about this guy who trans into male and female, and afterwards he wanted to go back again as a male, from female to male. You know, so at the moment for myself, I would say that I am confused.
Okay, and you know what, the transition period, and
Exactly.
for many that will be
Yep.
watching at home, it is a
Yes.
long and lengthy process.
It is, yes.
Now, we do talk a lot about, as I said, labelling and transsexualism and drag queens.
Yes.
The ladyboy phenomenon in Australia, how do you relate to this?
Um,
And where do you see yourselves fitting into this mould? Obviously, you've mentioned that you're a drag queen and that's it, and you're a little bit in between.
Yes.
So I guess I asked Charity for the ladyboy phenomenon.
The ladyboy phenomenon. I didn't realise how big it actually was until I joined the Miss Transsexual pageant, and then realised that there is quite a big community out there.
Is that an
a lot more than I thought.
Australia-wide community, or is it more of a
I would
Melbourne-based?
believe so. No, even when we went to Sydney Mardi Gras, yeah, it was just amazing. Like it's really out there, and I think it's getting bigger and bigger, and people, I think, don't even realise that it's there sometimes. So.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And for you, obviously, you had mentioned that you're of Asian descent.
Yes, yes.
So the ladyboy culture, you would obviously be a lot more in tune with what we hear in Australia. How do you promote that?
The ladyboy word actually is more or less really for the transsexuals that are originally from Thailand, and it has a really not so good connotation, because ladyboys, you would think that they are prostitutes, you know, like I would say, ladyboy in Thailand or something. Yes, and then
Do you think that's perceived in that context,
in the context
here, in Australia,
here, in Australia, yeah. Actually, what from my experience, people say, "Oh, ladyboy," it's like if you are from Asia and you look like a girl or something, or I mean, you're transsex or cross-dresser or a transsexual, they call it ladyboy. Yeah, so that's what I think. Anyway, now with the Miss Gay and Miss Transsexual Australia, we would like, it's actually, there are a lot of ladyboys that are attracted to joining it.
Yes.
Because what happens, there's a beauty pageant culture in Asia, most particularly in the Philippines, in Thailand, in Malaysia, and a lot of these girls really love beauty pageant because it how do you call this? It celebrates beauty, you know, and most of the transsexual ladyboys, they'd like to become really beautiful. So when you win in beauty pageant or something like that, then that means to say that you've done it. You know, you're the most beautiful girl or something.
And I think regardless of how you look, obviously, the three of us have very different, distinct looks. So,
Exactly.
And you know, I think we're all beautiful.
Yeah, we're all
Sorry,
beautiful
Norbert.
in that way. Anyway, I
Hang
don't
on.
know whether
one
I
of
digress.
the things I just wanted to mention
Yes.
there was that in Asian culture is actually very, very different. They actually turn around and bring togetherness, community together, and it's something that's actually seen as something good, not something bad.
Just touching on that, do you think that the expectation of being a ladyboy, either in Australia or your home countries, is to undergo gender reassignment surgery and assimilate into a straight society as a woman and go unnoticed from your previous way of life? Or do you think that's the end goal?
I think it has really grown. I mean, people realizing that, you know, you don't necessarily to have boobs or to, you know, to go for SRS, sexual reassignment surgery, in order to become fully, you know, happy of yourself as a transsexual. Because I've met like 2 or 3 people that they're transsexuals, they're happy with it, they didn't even have to go through surgery.
And I think that's a misconception also brought onto society, that at some point you are
Yes.
supposed to go through the complete surgery
Exactly.
and then become your life as a woman.
Because that is the thing, because we have labeled things, you know, like post-pre-op, you know, transsexuals, and after that, that means to say that you are not really transsexual.
The good one for that one is actually
Yes.
Vanessa, who was actually last year's winner of the Miss Transsexual. She actually hadn't had any surgery done at all.
Yes.
So, and she doesn't want any surgery done. So that's actually very important as well.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think it's the person himself who has really internalized
To
it,
be happy.
to be happy within yourself.
And I
that
think it
you
is.
are.
I agree with
You know
that.
what I
It's
mean?
very much a personal choice
Yeah,
of where you'd like to
yeah.
go with your life. So how different do you think performing in a beauty pageant, such as this one, differs from performing at a gay club doing drag shows? So for you, for example, Charity.
I would say there's a lot more preparation. You had to get into different categories, you had to get different costumes that fitted certain criteria, as I tend to just wear like my own style of thing and not try and do that if I'm performing in a gay bar.
And do they have evening wear and swimsuit and that kind of thing as well? Oh,
Yes.
fabulous.
So you actually
Fashion
find
we all-
yourself,
yes.
so you actually find yourself growing and developing other sides of you which weren't there before, because that's what the pageant is actually doing as well.
Exactly.
Because we
it's-
expect that
yes.
for an evening where you would be expected to be elegant and out there.
Exactly.
That's right.
You know, you'd have to put your whatever maleness or masculinity to one side in order
Yes.
to
Exactly.
partake in this pageant.
Yes.
Are there any secret rituals that you two ladies would like to share?
Mayhem.
Charity, what do you do? Is there a secret ritual that you need to?
Oh,
To share.
I usually have a couple of beers actually just to relax because I get a
Calm
bit
down a
stressed
bit,
out while
yes.
I'm going through it. Once I've had one or two beers, then I'm all good to go. So that's my only ritual, I think. And just keep people out of my way when I'm getting ready because I get a little bit, oh, is this, where's that?
And Geisha, just quickly.
I don't think I have any secrets at all because everything that you do now, you find it in Facebook, you find it in
Absolutely, it's all over
you find
social
it all
media.
there, YouTube. You know, makeup to this is, oh my God, you
I
can
know.
all search it there. It's all there.
Fantastic. And
Yes.
Norbert, if anyone would like to find any further information about Miss Gay or Miss Transsexual Beauty Pageant, do you have a website?
We do have a website. It's Miss Gay, Miss Transsexual Australia. So please log on. If anyone wants to do any sponsorship or help us out in any way, please don't hesitate. Or if anybody wants to volunteer, please don't hesitate.
Norbert, Geisha, Charity, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
very
us.
much.
For all of you at home, thank you so much for watching. I'm Sky High. Until we meet again.
You're watching Bent TV. We'll be back after this short break. You're watching Bent TV. Our next segment is Quedia, which covers queer and media, all sort of smushed together. The host is Steve and his guest tonight is Lisa Sky, and she's talking about how she was deformed by suburban life. Look forward to seeing this.
Good evening, welcome to Ben TV. I'm Steve Pereira and welcome to Quedia, our program where we cover all things queer and everything media. We are, as always, an eclectic program, but we always deliver electric results. Today, we're following up with our fabulous comedian du jour, du month, du year, Lisa Sky. I had to look down because she has a hyphenated name. Lisa has been lighting up the Melbourne stages recently with a show in Songs My Parents Taught Me, where she explores all things deformative about her growing up experience, but mainly things suburban. Lisa, welcome to Bent.
Hi there.
Again. Now, Suburbia, now again, it seems to be a recurring theme with you. What is it about suburban life that so deformed you?
I guess deformed me or formed me.
I prefer deformed me. I had a deformative experience. I have no formative experiences whatsoever.
I guess because I grew up in Bundoora. I unfortunately have Bundoora's postcode tattooed on my arm.
You do indeed. Can the camera see that, please?
I don't know. I've got new tattoos, so they're all like gross and like scabby and sexy. Oh, black scabs, new tattoo. That was weird. So yeah, it's Bundoora's postcode that I got when I was 19, and an idiot instead of being 31, an idiot. Oh.
But what were you thinking at 19, getting a Bundoora postal code tattooed on your forearm?
Wait, okay. Where's 19-year-old Lisa? When I was 19, I fell on back like this. It was actually really bad because I was like only a few months out of a private girls' school, and it was really, really feral how I spoke. And oh my God, now I can't turn it off. Oh God. But yeah, I was basically thinking.
That is scary.
Yeah, isn't it?
That is very scary.
Yeah. A few of my friends and I just bandy around and start doing it and make our partners very uncomfortable. But I was like, oh, I've lived in Bundoora my whole life. I'm going to get Bundoora's postcode tattooed on me. What?
So what does Bundoora mean to you in terms of suburban areas? Now, let's just, in general terms, a suburb is a boring blank space filled with shopping malls and people who've never seen sunlight.
I think it's just something to either stand out from or rebel against. Like, I'll rebel to anything. It's just a way of sticking out. I mean, if I grew up in, where's somewhere fabulous? Like if I grew up in San Francisco or New York or inside Mona, I would probably be just some very conservative brown eyeshadow foundation wearing person with work clothes.
As opposed to a glamorous...
As opposed to a glamour sparkle pup. I guess, yeah, I don't know. Suburbia is just, it's everything that I'm kind of trying not to be, or trying to kind of change, because that's very much a theme in my comedy, is like, hey, look, I'm all, you know, because I flaunt my privilege, something shocking. It's like, look, I'm really short and sparkly, and oh, look at my green hair, and then fingered. No, then I'm all like, but look at my radical queer agenda. Blah. But look, I'm all pretty, yeah, cutting people for sexual pleasure. So yeah, trying to get the Bogans on board, trying to get the suburbanites on board. That's
fascinating, because I mean, from a queer perspective, the whole notion of an urban centre is where all queer people flock to. We flee the suburbs and we come to queerdom. But now we know that we're all into marriage and kids and the families, and we're all going to Point Cook and...
Who we all? What? No, you all. You can do that. You can have your children and your marriage.
We're part of this larger community.
No, I want my sex parties and my black nail polish.
But this is what's interesting, and one of the studies I read said that the true radicalism is actually happening in suburbia, where it's like, you know, I'm really going to date myself, but Peyton Place, where everything appears normal, but it's all subterranean. The sex parties, the swingers.
But why should it be subterranean? Hooray for visibility! Hooray for normalising weird stuff!
But that's what's so exciting about it. It's like being Catholic and having sex in a confessional. You know, the fact that you're sinning is so exciting.
I don't know anything about that, but I do know confessionals are quite small, and I've got very short legs, so I can really Spider-Man that business. I did some sex voguing then.
Sex in a couple of confessionals, I can testify, it can be done quite well.
Tickety-tock. I'm good in a car because I've got a low centre of gravity, and like I said, I've got very short legs.
Good to know.
Yep.
I hope you people are taking notes up there. You're learning very valuable things at the moment.
Twitter, @TheLisaSky. Facebook, @TheLisaSky.
And that, folks, was self-promotion. Congratulations.
Yay! So, for trade, not for my show. So, yeah, I guess, because that's the other thing, I am just a pretentious, artsy wanker.
But we all are, to a certain degree.
Yeah, and it's fabulous. So, I don't know, I guess my suburban roots are kind of... They're very much always in me and always influence me, because, you know, my parents read the Herald Sun and listen to 3AW and do all these very, very normal things and have opinions on My Kitchen Rules and MasterChef and all of that.
So do you think when you reach a certain age, will you still be a radical fairy, or are you going to...
Yeah, this is as much as I'm going to grow up. I mean, I'm really lucky because my partner is as ridiculous as me. So we're like, midnight roller coaster, adventures in Chinese food, yay! Because I'm not going to have children. No.
They tend to grow up.
Yeah, and spend your money and break your heart. No, thank you. I don't know, and because I'm an idiot, I can look after a puppy and a Tamagotchi. My Tamagotchi never died. No, it never died. The batteries ran out. What? Yeah, it was heaps old. Grouse at looking after Tamagotchis.
Oh my God. Okay. Now, words of advice, because we are being instructional here as well. For all the young kids coming up there who want to get into the stand-up community, who want to come out and be as fabulous as you, you can try. Where do they go to?
It's a lot of work, and it's very heartbreaking, but if you want to do it, like, you do it because you have to, not because you want to be famous or want to make money. Just work really hard, be nice to everyone, work really hard. I don't know, I haven't succeeded yet.
That sounded suspiciously normal and suburban, that advice. I was expecting something.
Have kids and move to Plaza Town. No, I reckon all you need to do really is go to the open mic nights. I would love more queer people at comedy rooms. That would be wonderful. It would be great to not have a guy in jeans and t-shirts talking about his kids and his wife. He loves them.
So you still think we don't have enough queer people out there?
No, we don't have nearly enough. And I do a show for a spoken word event for Midsummer every year. That's basically about, you know, kind of queer people having a voice and things like that, because there are a lot of lesbian comedians, a lot of gay comedians, not a lot of miscellaneously other comedians. So yay, rally against the heteronormativity and things like that, and come join me.
And that, folks, was a rallying call for Quedia. And there you have it, folks. We have a rallying call for all of you out there. Get out there, get onto the stages, light the stages up, join Lisa Sky and be fabulous. Thank you so much. You've been watching Quedia on Ben TV. We'll be back again soon. Keep your eye out for us. Get onto the webpage and click on Lisa's YouTube videos. You'll laugh your head off. Thank you so much. Good night.
You've been watching Bent TV. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. If you would like to give us feedback, please do on feedback@benttv.org.au, or on our Facebook page. We'd love to hear any comments you've got. And we'd love you to volunteer for us too if you're keen. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you.